Let's hear now from Tim Kremer. Tim is the Executive Director of the New York State School Boards Association, has been here since August of '98, representing and helping to educate and train the 5,000 school board members, all volunteers across the state. He came to Albany from Ohio, which those of us in SUNY have lately learned, despite his jokes about Ohio State, is a good place from which to obtain educational leadership. And he is, there he was the deputy director. Timothy?
Correct.
How's this from the employer's perspective?
Well, I represent a statewide educational network of nearly 700 school districts across the state, obviously millions of students, billions in taxpayer dollars to fund those programs, and hundreds of thousands of employees. We are obviously in the people business. We must employ the most qualified person that we can employ who's available to us in every single position. We're not unlike any other organization, all the organizations you work for as well. To attract these well-qualified people, we must ensure that they are fairly compensated, that their entire compensation package is appropriate and fair. My organization, the New York State School Board Association, has long held the position that our new employees should have the option of choosing between a defined benefit or a defined contribution plan similar to the SUNY and CUNY staff. We're very pleased that the defined contribution option for new employees is finally on the front burner. And I say that not only as the Executive Director of the New York State School Board Association, but I'm also a member, along with Peter, of a 19-organization coalition called Let New York Work, which is focusing on mandate relief. And believe me, the costs of these pensions are a huge mandate on employers, public employers throughout New York. And Tier 6, support of Tier 6, has been very much a part of our agenda for some time now. Let me tell you a little bit about how a defined contribution plan and defined benefit plan might impact K through 12 education. The current defined benefit plan, as the only option we have available, most of our employees are either with the teacher's retirement system, and those who are in a non-instructional class, non-certified class, are likely with the state employees retirement system, or ERS. The only option they have available to them is a defined benefit plan, and we are finding that it is simply too expensive for a school district to sustain these costs. Here's why. 2001, 2002, the employer contribution rates for all school districts, and I'll be rounding all of my figures here. ERS school districts paid in $28 million. TRS, $129 million, a percentage of payroll. This is back in 2001, 2002. Our total was around $258 million. Flash forward to 2009 and 10 years later. ERS, $272 million. TRS, $832 million. Our total now is over $1 billion, from 258 to over $1 billion. The increase has been approximately $850 million, which is the equivalent of 327%. Let me focus on the teacher's retirement system specifically, which is, I have to tell you, one of the best managed employee pension systems, public employee systems in the country. And while TRS and the state ERS pension managers professionally manage these funds and simply are there to pay out the benefits, what we do know is this: from 2002 to 2011, the final average salary of retiring TRS members, which is obviously a key component within the benefit calculation formula, increased by 25%, from $68,000 to $85,000. What that means is people are retiring at a higher salary. The average maximum benefit paid to TRS beneficiaries increased 23% during that same period of time, from 2002 to 2011. It went from $42,000 to $51,000. At the same time, while these benefits went up, the average length of service at retirement remained virtually unchanged. Let's look at the potential savings to school district taxpayers. TRS employer contributions right now, 2011 and 12, are 11.11% of payroll. Let's round it off to 11. It has been announced that it will be somewhere between 11.25 and 12.25 in 2012 and 13. 11.25% to 12.25%. ERS employer contribution rates this year, 2011-12, are 16.3% of payroll. It has been announced that next year they'll be 18.9% of payroll. With those rates, let me apply that to teacher salaries. Now, the most complete figure we've got for teacher salaries goes back to 2009, where the teacher salaries totaled approximately, statewide, $19 billion. If you applied what EJ suggests as the top employer rate that he would recommend for a defined contribution plan of 8%, the contribution drops to $1.5 billion. So from $2 billion at 11%, if you take his 8%, it drops down to $1.5 billion. The savings would be $575 million in 1 year if we went from a defined contribution plan as it's calculated today and people took the defined benefit plan. Now, this is everybody doing it. You took that defined contribution plan, I should say, you'd save $575 million in 1 year. And imagine compounding that over time. So we see there at least are the potential for some significant savings there. We're not unique, as has been suggested, in offering optional plans to public sector employees. There are at least a dozen states that have already introduced alternative pension plans. Michigan and Alaska require all new hires to join a defined contribution plan. Oregon and Indiana have adopted what they call a combined plans, where employees are required to participate in a combination of both a DB and a DC plan. There are 8 states that are more in line with what we're talking about that offer choices to public sector employees between DB and DC plans. I'm no expert on all of this, but I have tried to think through what would be the benefits to employees on this one, and I think the big one, as has already been pointed out, is portability. And I think that's extremely relevant for public school employees, the type of people who my boards of education employ, because they have a relatively high turnover rate. The overall teacher turnover rate is 13%. We have, if you look at just the people who leave with less than 5 years of service, obviously not yet vested, the rate grows to 20%. Now, when these unvested employees leave the TRS system, they get reimbursed for their own contribution plus interest of 5%, but the employer's contribution stays with TRS. In 3 out of 10 districts in this state, the turnover rate of teachers with less than 5 years experience is 25%. In 10 districts, the turnover rate of employees with less than 5 years experience is 50%. So we have a lot of people who are in the program or getting into the teaching profession and leaving in relatively short order, going on to do something else. You would think that the portability benefit of a DC plan would be attractive to them. God love them. They're going on to do something that probably they would be better equipped to do. Who knows what they're about to do, but I think they would be greatly benefit from that. Some other benefits that have occurred to me, the potential investment gains. I happen to come from a system where I was in a 403B during the 80s and 90s, and I did pretty good. Probably a lot better than one would have had if I had been into a DB plan at the time. Now, granted, there's a lot of swings, there's a lot of risk. I was a younger man at the time, I'm more conservative today. But those were some good years to be in a defined contribution plan. I would think that a defined contribution plan available, and I think you alluded to this, would be attractive to mid-career employees. If you have a vesting now that is 10 or 12 years, I might not be interested in making that kind of move from what I'm doing right now. But let's say that I'm 55 years old and I retire, and now I have this opportunity to go teach, for example, and I can actually put away a fairly nice nest egg over the next 7 years until I'm 62. I might be attracted to do that. And we could attract some very talented people from all walks of life into the teaching profession. I think that would be helpful. I think the DC plan also, one other benefit is it's unnecessary to establish these long-term service thresholds that force people, honestly, to sometimes wait around to retire. People who are ready to go do something else in their lives, who would like to take their talents elsewhere, to another state, to another profession, but they're chained. They're feeling like, I'm at that year 14, I got to get to year 20, I got to get to year 30 before it's really going to pay. It becomes a hindrance. The last thing I thought of upon this, and I think it was already said, is the possibility of greater benefits upon one's death. Kind of a morbid thought, but the fact of the matter is, if I pass away either before I even start taking benefits, it's really traumatic. If I pass away with those as a beneficiary of the retirement system, I get 3 times salary. Hopefully, through a DC plan, if I've been doing it right, I've got significantly more than 3 times salary saved up that would be available for my heirs. In closing, I would say that the alternative to the pension reform at a time when we at school district levels have revenue caps both at the state level, these are new, revenue caps at the state level, and tax caps at the local level, we have to be looking at alternatives, at innovations, at ways in which we can make ends meet. And I would tell you the salary, the whole personnel costs, which eat up about 75% of our budget or more, the pension is a big part of that. You have communities in this state right now where the amount they're paying out on pension costs and retiree health care costs exceed what they pay in current payroll. And in some of these communities where their enrollment's going down dramatically and they're thinking about how are we going to merge with some other district, those other districts are saying, we're not interested in merging with you because of the long-term liabilities that you bring to the table. This is going to become a real problem. What we are finding ourselves do if we don't have some cost containment options, we have these revenue cuts, the tax cap and such, you got to give us, legislature, some help on the cost side. Otherwise, we're going to cut programs, we're going to be laying off staff, we're going to be closing buildings, we're eliminating programs, and these are things that help students learn. If we don't do this, students and taxpayers are going to lose. If we simply maintain the status quo, I believe that the DC option for new employees only is a win-win-win for employees, for taxpayers, and for students.